For the last couple of decades, people have reported encountering mysterious creatures, and while some of the mysteries have been solved, there are a few that hint towards the existence and appearance of aliens, UFOs, and human contact with them.
Oh, what did I just freaking see, dude? What was that?
Join us today as we uncover some mysterious alien sightings that are going to leave you speechless. Number 10. Zimbabwe's Great Alien Invasion. In 1994, 60 children at Aerial School in Ruwa, Zimbabwe, said they'd seen a UFO and aliens with big eyes in bushland near their school playground. The story was reported around the world, and soon everyone started to arrive at the scene to talk to the pupils and the teachers about this mysterious encounter. The children claimed they had witnessed an unknown craft descend from the sky and land in a field nearby. The incident, which would become known as the Aerial School phenomenon in UFO circles, started out on a fairly normal day. At break time, while the teachers remained inside for a faculty meeting, some children claimed to have seen a silvery disc land on a hill just out of bounds. The children reportedly ran to the edge of the school grounds to get a better look, with several claiming that they saw figures emerge from what they described as a craft. The children described the event, which they reported as having lasted up to 15 minutes, to their teachers after the break had ended, but it was treated with much warranted skepticism. However, when they talked to their parents that night, they had questions that were then asked the faculty. With this prompting and the intervention of a local UFO researcher, the head teacher of the school asked the children to draw what they had seen. They came back with pretty similar images of silvery, classic UFO-type crafts, sometimes complete with alien figures standing nearby. It looked like it was glinting in the trees. It looked like a disc, like a round disc. One witness told the BBC a few days after the incident. "I saw something silver on the ground amongst the trees, and a person in black," another said. The children were also interviewed by local UFO researcher Cynthia Hind the day after the event. What Hind found curious was that the students, who had diverse backgrounds, though all from wealthy families as tuition was expensive, described similar features to the figures in the UFO, despite interpreting the phenomenon in wildly different ways based on their own upbringing. Hind believed that the different interpretations, accompanied by similar drawings and descriptions, added credence to the idea that the children all witnessed the same event. Next came a Harvard professor of psychiatry, John Mack, to interview the children, and a new narrative emerged that the children reported receiving telepathic messages from the aliens, spreading an environmental message. There was mass hysteria and panic among the people in Africa after the news of the Aerial School incident. While no one has a definitive explanation to explain the events of that day, it is still counted as an unsolved mystery of alien encounters. Number 9. Travis Walton UFO Incident. Travis Walton, an American forestry worker who was working with a timber stand improvement crew in the Apache Sitgreaves National Forest near Snowflake, Arizona on November 5, 1975, experienced something very bizarre. While riding in a truck with 6 of his co-workers, they allegedly saw a saucer-shaped object hovering over the ground about 110 feet away, emitting a high-pitched buzz. Walton claims that as he approached the object after leaving the truck, a beam of light appeared from above the craft and knocked him unconscious. The other 6 men were reportedly terrified and drove away in the truck. Walton claimed he woke up in a hospital-like setting being watched by 3 short, bald creatures. He claimed he fought them until a human wearing a helmet led Walton to another room where he blacked out while 3 other humans placed a clear plastic mask over his face. Walton claims he remembers nothing else until 5 days later when he found himself walking along a highway with the flying saucer departing above him. Walton and his co-workers were granted a $5,000 award for the greatest UFO case of the year by the National Enquirer after passing polygraph tests administered by the Enquirer and the Aerial Phenomena Research Organization. Walton was in the limelight after his UFO story broke, and he wrote a book called The Walton Experience detailing his claims, which became the basis for the 1993 film Fire in the Sky. While some people believe Walton's story, others say it was an elaborated lie to become an instant celebrity and garner attention. But who knows what is actually the truth behind his story. Number 8. David Eckhart Alien Encounters. The alien abduction and contact case of David Eckhart is another story that seemingly divides opinion within the UFO community. The Eckhart family, particularly David Eckhart, have had frequent extraterrestrial contact and abductions from their home in the Milton area of Pensacola, Florida, dating back to the early 2000s. According to Eckhart, he and his family were increasingly noticing strange activity around their home. This gradually escalated into encounters with unusual entities, including small people with huge black eyes and even alien abductions. Furthermore, Eckhart believes these contacts were occurring long before they relocated to Milton's quiet urban house. He even claims to have had faint memories of strange Muppets sleeping on his bunk when he was a child. When David first moved to Florida, he went on a camping trip with his friends when he witnessed a strange light traveling at great speed over the trees where they were looking to set up camp. The friends group was in a jovial mood, so they ignored it and began setting up the camp when Eckhart noticed the strange light once again. It appeared to be coming from inside the woods. According to Eckhart, the object was so close to them that he could hear the whoosh moving through the air. When the light appeared again, Eckhart tried to follow it but lost it because the object that was shining the incredibly bright light was only visible for some milliseconds. For half an hour, Eckhart chased and lost the object, but then it entered the water near their campsite, so the group started packing so they could leave. Before leaving, Eckhart described encountering a very strange creature that had a very distinct aroma that he could detect from several feet away. Upon closer inspection, he claimed that the figure appeared like a child who had aged like an elderly person. The creature was able to run away, but Eckhart suffered intense dreams regarding the bizarre encounter. Not only this, Eckhart and his family started hearing strange noises, and they felt someone was in their home. On various occasions, the camera Eckhart installed in his home to get an idea of what was happening captured truly bizarre images. One of the most fascinating pieces of footage captured by the Eckharts was an apparent reptilian-type entity that appeared to gain entry into their bedroom via some kind of suddenly appearing portal. What makes this footage particularly fascinating is that both David and his wife were in bed and awake at the time of the incident, but didn't see anything out of the ordinary. It was only when they reviewed the footage later that it came to light. There were multiple encounters between Eckhart and his family with the reptilian-type entities. While some say they were reptilian overlords or some evils from hell, others believe Eckhart witnessed aliens visiting the Earth through some secret portal in the family's living room. Number 7. Betty and Barney's story. Barney and Betty Hill were an American couple who claimed that they were abducted by aliens from September 19th to 20th, 1961 in a rural area of New Hampshire. It was the first widely publicized report in the United States of alien abduction. According to various reports from the Hills, the alleged UFO sighting happened about 10:30 p.m. on September 19th, 1961. The Hills were driving back to Portsmouth from a vacation when they observed a bright point of light in the sky that moved from below the moon and the planet Jupiter upward to the west of the moon. Because it moved erratically and grew bigger and brighter, Betty urged Barney to stop the car for a closer look. So Barney stopped at a scenic picnic area just south of Twin Mountain. Through her binoculars, Betty observed an odd-shaped craft flashing multicolored lights traveling across the face of the moon. At first, she thought it was a plane, but soon changed her mind because the craft rapidly started to descend in their direction. The Hills continued driving on the isolated road while observing the object as it came closer. The object then rapidly descended toward their vehicle, causing Barney to stop in the middle of the highway. The huge silent craft hovered above the Hills' car and filled the entire field of view in the windshield. Using the binoculars, Barney claimed to have seen 8 to 11 humanoid figures who were peering out of the craft's window, seeming to look at him. In unison, all but one figure moved to what appeared to be a panel on the rear wall of the hallway that encircled the front portion of the craft. The one remaining figure continued to look at Barney and communicated a message telling him to stay where you are and keep looking. Barney had a recollection of observing the humanoid forms wearing glossy black uniforms and black capes. Red lights on what appeared to be bat-wing fins began to telescope out of the sides of the craft, and a long structure descended from the bottom of the craft. Barney tore the binoculars away from his eyes and ran back to his car. In a near hysterical state, he told Betty, "They're going to capture us." He saw the object again shift its location to directly above the vehicle. He drove away as fast as he could, telling Betty to look for the object. She rolled down the window and looked up. Almost immediately, the Hills heard a rhythmic series of beeping or buzzing sounds, which they said seemed to bounce off the trunk of their vehicle. The car vibrated and a tingling sensation passed through the Hills' bodies. The Hills said that they then experienced the onset of an altered state of consciousness that left their minds dulled. The second series of beeping or buzzing sounds returned the couple to full consciousness. They found that they had traveled nearly 35 miles south, but had only vague, spotty memories of this section of road. And when the couple arrived at their home, strange things happened. Like their watches never worked again, the strap of the binoculars was torn, and there was a pink powder on Betty's dress. Betty had a series of vivid dreams 10 days after the encounter. On September 21st, Betty telephoned Pease Air Force Base to report the strange UFO encounter. An investigation was launched to verify their claims. Number 6. The UFO sighting in the 1960s. Jim Carter reported a UFO sighting before he became governor of Georgia on an evening in 1969. Carter was getting ready to deliver a speech at a Lions Club meeting. Around 7:15 p.m., one of the visitors alerted him to a weird object seen around 30 degrees above the horizon to the west of where he was standing. The object is dazzling white and roughly the same brightness as the moon. It was alleged to have closed up on him but stopped beyond a pine tree grove some distance away. The object is then said to have changed color, first to blue, then to red, then back to white, before appearing to recede into the distance. 10 to 12 people observed the phenomenon. The experience of Carter was investigated, but nothing special came out of it. A few years after the incident was recalled by the people who were present at that time during a meeting in 1976, and no one remembered seeing an object. Only one guest remembered seeing something blue like a hot air balloon, but he didn't remember the details vividly. Even Carter said that whatever he saw that night must have been a military aircraft from a nearby base or something similar. Carter also said that he did not believe that any extraterrestrials had visited Earth, but who knows what happened that night. Number 5. The infamous claims of George Adamski. To some, he was a prophet, to others, a laughingstock. Even today, more than half a century after his death, George Adamski remains one of the most curious and controversial characters in UFO history. Adamski was born in Poland on April 17, 1891. Adamski's family relocated to New York when he was less than 2 years old, and he grew up in Dunkirk. Adamski made several claims to UFO fame. He began photographing what he said were flying saucers in the late 1940s. Experts, however, regarded them as crude forgeries, including J. Allen Hynek, scientific consultant to the Air Force's Cold War-era UFO investigative team, Project Blue Book. Then, in 1952, Adamski described meeting and conversing with a visitor from Venus in a California desert via hand signals and mental telepathy. His story got even more strange as he explained that his new friends took him aboard one of their scout ships, flew him to an immense mothership hovering over the Earth, gave him a ride to the moon, and treated him to a colorful travelogue about life on Venus. Along the way, he was also tutored by a spaceman he called the Master. The Master, who was said to be nearly 1,000 years old, shared the secrets of the universe with Adamski, only some of which he was allowed to divulge back on Earth. Adamski wrote many books and their sequels describing his meeting with the Venusian, but also with emissaries from Mars and Saturn. In Adamski's telling, every planet in our solar system was populated with human-like inhabitants, as was the dark side of the Earth's moon. As preposterous as his stories seem, Adamski rose to international prominence and was invited to give numerous lectures. He caused quite a stir when Queen Juliana of the Netherlands invited him to her palace in 1959 to discuss alien activities. Adamski quickly gained a global following. However, not everyone approved of his stories and whatever stance he was using to impress people. The creator of 2001: A Space Odyssey, Arthur C. Clarke, not only condemned Adamski's work, but also called his supporters nitwits. Number 4. Scoutmaster run-in with a UFO. On On a humid August night in 1952, Scoutmaster D.S. Sonny Des Vergas emerged burned and barely coherent from a dense palmetto grove in the South Florida Everglades. He claimed he'd encountered an unidentified flying object that discharged a fireball which left him singed and barely able to see. Des Vergas was driving a group of Boy Scouts home when he saw a bright light flash over Military Trail near West Palm Beach, Florida. Armed with a machete and flashlights, Des Vergas pulled onto the shoulder of the highway so he could take a closer look, leaving the three boys in the vehicle with instructions to alert the residents of a nearby farmhouse if he did not return in 15 minutes. The first thing he described was a strong, unpleasant smell, followed by the sensation that someone or something was watching him. Following that, he felt an oven-like heat coming from above. Des Vergas stated that he couldn't see any stars since he was standing beneath a hovering object. Des Vergas described the object as circular, dull black, with no seams, about 30 feet in diameter and a height of 10 feet, with a convex dome atop it and the bottom edge lighted with a phosphorescent glow. He then heard a noise like metal against metal, after which a red flare-like light came from the side of the object and slowly moved toward him. The red ball of light grew into a red mist and engulfed him when he lost consciousness. When he woke up, he was leaning against a tree but couldn't see properly as his eyes burned. The claims of Des Vergas were investigated, and his encounter was called the best hoax in UFO history. It is still one of the weirdest UFO sightings ever reported and remains unsolved to this day. Number 3. Dogfight with a UFO. Gorman, a 25-year-old former fighter pilot, served as a second lieutenant in the North Dakota Air National Guard. This role placed him behind the flight controls of a P-51 Mustang on October 1, 1948, taking part in a cross-country flight alongside other National Guard airmen. Gorman was in the air to get in some night flying time in the cloudless conditions when he witnessed what he believed to be the tail light of another craft passing on the right, though the tower had no other objects on their radar, so he decided to take a closer look. Gorman pulled his plane up and closed to within about 1,000 yards, and according to him, the object was about 6 to 8 inches in diameter, clear white and completely without fuzz at the edges, and it was blinking on and off. But as Gorman approached it, the light became steady and pulled into a sharp left bank. Gorman was engaged in aerial maneuvers with the flying object for 27 minutes before he decided to land his plane. He also reported blacking out temporarily due to the excessive speed he reached in attempting to turn with the object. Gorman wasn't the only one to see the mysterious object that night. It was also witnessed by other air traffic controllers who were manning the Hector Airport Tower. They reported seeing the object traveling at a high rate of speed and was fast enough to increase the spacing between itself and Gorman's fighter. The air traffic controllers described the object as appearing to be only a round light, perfectly formed with no fuzzy edges or rays leaving its body. The Gorman dogfight remains one of the classics among UFO sightings and is definitely fascinating. Number 2. America's first UFO sighting. Many people think aliens and UFOs are a modern phenomenon, but you would be amazed to know the Puritans were the first to record strange shining lights in American skies. The Puritans were followers of Puritanism, a religious reform movement that originated in the Church of England in the late 16th century. They thought the Church of England was too similar to the Roman Catholic Church and that it should abandon rites and practices that were not based on the Bible. According to a recollection of the trials and triumphs of his fellow Puritans, John Winthrop shed light on an unusual event that caused a stir among the English immigrants. When James Everell and 2 others were paddling a boat in the muddy river, they noticed a bright light in the night sky. When the light stood still, it flamed up and was about 3 yards square, and when it ran, it was contracted into the figure of a swine. The boatman claimed that the unexplained light ran as swift as an arrow for 2 to 3 hours, darting back and forth between them and the village of Charlestown, a distance of around 2 miles. After that, different credible people also observed the identical light about the same area. When the bizarre apparition eventually faded, the 3 Puritans in the boat were stunned to find themselves 1 mile upstream, as if the light had carried them there. The men had no recollection of rowing against the tide. However, it is possible they were carried by the wind or a reverse tidal flow. The mysterious repositioning of the boat could also suggest that they were unaware of part of their experience. Some researchers would interpret this as a possible alien abduction if it happened today. All of this was reported by John Winthrop, the governor of the Massachusetts Bay Colony, in 1639 in his diary, where he kept all the collection of the important achievements of his fellow Puritans and definitely hints towards the existence of aliens long before the modern age. Number 1. The Wandering Visitors. Colonel Lee, a commander of the airbase in Changzhou, where the Military Flight Training Academy is located, described that on October 19, 1998, 4 radar stations in Hebei province reported the presence of an unidentified blip hovering over the academy. After ascertaining that the intruder was not on a military or civilian flight, he ordered a Jianjiao 6 fighter jet to take off and intercept the UFO. At least 140 people on the ground saw the object. To observers at the base, the UFO first appeared to be a small pointed star and then grew larger and larger, perhaps as it descended to a lower altitude. Witnesses described an object with a mushroom-shaped dome on top and a flat bottom, covered with bright, constantly rotating lights. The crew of the Jianjiao 6 interceptor consisted of a pilot and a radar officer. The 2 officers reported that the object clearly resembled depictions they had seen in foreign science fiction films. When they got within 4,000 meters of the UFO over Chen County, it abruptly shot upwards, easily evading subsequent attempts to get closer. The flight crew reported that it appeared to be toying with the plane by repeatedly outdistancing it and then reappearing right above it. The pilot requested permission to fire on the UFO with the plane's automatic 20mm cannon, but Lee denied this permission to shoot and told him to continue to pursue and observe the object. The pilot broke off pursuit at an altitude of 12,000 meters when the plane began running low on fuel. The UFO then apparently disappeared before Lee could order additional planes to be sent to the area, leaving the encounter a mystery.